The two questions of theory, or the two problems of theory. What is theory? Theory is a history. Well, theory has a history, and theory is a history of theory. There's a history of theory, but look, history of philosophy is a part of theory. It's a part of theory's theory of history. And you need a theory of history to have theory, but it's not a philosophy of history. It's not a religion of history. It's a history of religion. It's a history of history. Really, what you need is to look at the 20th century, because theory is really about the 20th century. It's about the realization that you can have a history of philosophy. However, you cannot have a philosophy of religion. Theory replaces philosophy and becomes the historicization of philosophy. But just like philosophy is nothing without the philosophers, theory is nothing without this history of 20th century writers. Well, let's say the long 20th century. And we're looking at Europe. We're looking at the 19th and 20th centuries, the long 20th century. And we've got really the Germans on one side, and we've got the French on the other side, and we have the interactions between the two of those. But this is not an introduction to theory class. It's not an introduction to theory video, but we're looking at the two questions of theory as they emerge in the writings of these German and French writers primarily. Pursuing these two questions of theory was the motivation for me to write the off-course texts. So that started with Serendipity Lost, which I put out on audiobook on YouTube in 2022. And now we have Beliefonomics coming to completion. I haven't told you what the two questions are yet. The two great problems of theory. And here's the problem with the problems. The problem with the questions raised by theory is you can't answer them by studying theory. So the off-course text was not about theory. It's not a research project into the work of, say, Freud and Deleuze, or pick any of these names. And this video is not an intro to theory video. In just a second, let me tell you what the two questions are. Question A: how do you connect modern secular theories of government to an earlier history, a much longer history of religiously oriented states? That is to say, how do global legacies of religion, not merely Greek and Judeo-Christian, contribute to contemporary concepts of social theory, of political order? Perhaps the shortest, how has secular society been perhaps secretly shaped by religion? Even the new atheists actually are talking about this. Dawkins, recently I saw a video. They hate theory, grand theory, but nonetheless they're still kind of facing this, having eliminated or occluded religion from debates about how society in the West should work. Has there emerged these other religion-esque forces? Theory has been working on that, but like I said, you can't understand that. You can't understand that question A, first of all, without going beyond a clash of civilization assumptions. So you need to go beyond the Greek and Judeo-Christian histories. You need to look at the global legacies of religion and quote-unquote Eastern philosophy as well. Anyway, question B. We can't understand question A without question B. Question B is, given philosophy's traditional opposition to capitalism, still we have to acknowledge that postmodernism has had an affinity for chance, for serendipity, the aleatory in art. This parallels capitalist theory's advocacy of spontaneous order. So what is theory's evaluation of capitalism? How do we evaluate capitalism and its relationship to other ideals of social order? Democracy, the good, utilitarianism. Ideas that usually come out of philosophy but also find a place in theory after philosophy has been historicized and put in its place. What is capitalism's relationship to psychological well-being? This is a question that's raised in a way in theory as well. Capitalism and schizophrenia. But the judgments are far from equivocal, even though theory traditionally comes from a place of opposition to capitalism. Marx. The theologico-political question, that's one, and the capitalism problem. But yeah, I think let's just call it the capitalism and schizophrenia problem, because we are talking there also about the relationship of capitalism to some conceptualization of human well-being. And psychology is a part of all this, how we're going to evaluate capitalism. Psychology is at the basis of theory with Freud. Now, the off-course texts is an exploration of the potential for viewing these two questions as two sides of the same coin. And why you don't find an answer to these questions in the long 20th century of theory is not a complete neglect, but somewhat of a neglect for how they are the same. You find more of an oscillation occasionally, or you find thinkers who really only fixate on one or the other. Really, in Deleuze and Guattari, I think you find the most earnest attempt to put these questions together, and yet something falls short. And perhaps, as I talk about in my video about beliefonomics and schizoanalysis, there's an unwillingness to let philosophy go that, especially in Deleuze and Guattari, but also in all of these thinkers, there's this sort of tendency to still bring theory back to philosophy as some kind of resurrected sphinx, if you will. Philosophy is our sphinx. Actually, I think we need to make philosophy the scapegoat, or we need to reverse the positions where capitalism is typically the scapegoat. Actually, we need to make philosophy the scapegoat. And that's what beliefonomics is all about. And you can learn a lot more about beliefonomics by having a look at the other videos, book 3 of the off-course texts.